It is with great pleasure that I introduce a longtime friend, a guy who's been an inspiration to me. He's just been awesome. Met him 40 years ago this month, actually. He's known as the former CEO, president of the Harlem Children's Zone. He's really just an incredible stand-up person, as well as a dynamic, internationally and nationally known leader in the field of education. Please join me in welcoming Geoffrey Canada.
Good morning, everybody. I'm really thrilled to be here. Manny took advantage of our 40-year friendship. I'm retired. I said, Manny, look, I'm not doing anything until November. He said, Jeff, just one little thing. I wouldn't have missed it for the world. I've known Manny, and I followed his career for 40 years. We were both at the Ed School at Harvard together at the same time, and we met 40 years ago. And we both started our careers in the classroom. And I still think that I am a better teacher than I am anything else. I love teaching kids. I will spend my time teaching individual kids. I had a great teacher education, but it didn't start off so well. One of the problems that we have in our business is people don't understand how difficult this profession is. I mean, some places you can teach, right? And you just simply say to the kids, take out your notebooks, write down the important stuff, and you teach it, it's all good. I never worked in one of those. I'm just being honest, right? And anyone who wants to come work at our schools, I say, if that's what you're expecting, you're in the wrong place. We're in the deep end of the pool. And we intentionally went deep. It wasn't like I was tricked into going in the hall, right? And said, oh, you didn't know? No, I knew. And I went there because I'm a professional educator. And I know how tough this profession is. But let me tell you how I found out how deep valued the professionalism of our job is. So I'm at Bowdoin College, small liberal arts school. I'm a senior. All I want to do is teach. I take every class in education they have at Bowdoin before I go to Harvard. And I'm taking a physiology class and a pharmacology class my senior year because I think both of those are going to help me be a better teacher, right? I want to know about the whole body and the impact on the body, and nutrition and health. And pharmacology in the middle of a huge heroin epidemic before the crack epidemic. And I want to understand, so I take the classes and I get an A in both classes. And the head of the chemistry department comes to me and he says, Jeff, I recognize that you're a psychology major, but you got 2 A's part-time. How do you get it on interested? He said, no. I said, the hard science, these classes are tough. I think they're pretty challenging. He said, no, that means you're really smart. This is a true story. And he said, you could be a doctor. I said, well, I want to be a teacher. Wait, teacher? Didn't I tell you were really smart? Y'all are laughing, but this is true. I'm 22, right? And then the head of the chemistry department and the head of the biology department started a tag team to convince me to go to medical school. And they just proud you every day. You're throwing away your life. You've got great intellect. Why don't you become a doctor? Do you know how much better you must be paid? Do you know? They even said the girls are going to like you more if you go in the medical. And that one really pushed me over the edge. So I decided that I'm going to go to med school, right? I had to take an extra semester of science classes. And right when I was about to sign the contract, I realized I don't want to be a doctor. I don't even like sick people. I wanted to be a teacher. That's what I wanted to be. And they were, I still see the disappointment in their face, saying, this is is what you're going to do with your life. I am thrilled to have proven folk wrong about the amount of dedication, intellect, the amount of absolute concentration and innovation it takes to be a really good teacher, a really good educator, and to save these kids. Now let me tell you why I'm on this mission. A lot of people, man, you talk about a lot of people from waiting for Superman, the president's replicating our work all over the 60 minutes, over all of that stuff. Let me tell you why this is so important. We have decided some of our kids cannot be educated, cannot be saved, and because we think we have proof, right? The proof is 30 years of failure for certain kids in certain communities who look like certain kinds of folks. I'm not talking to years, 10 years, 15, I'm talking about 30 years of failure, and people, our country, have decided, we know these kids aren't going to be able to get a job, so guess what we're going to do? For all the guys who can't work, who end up going into that alternative way of making money, we're going to make sure we have plenty of jail cells in America for them. We lock up more people per capita in our country than any place on the face of the earth. Any place. You think of the most despotic country, what was North Korea, not even close. United States, there's a country right into your phone, incarceration rates, number one, USA, 740 people per 100,000, no one's even close. You know what it is in China? Like 115, 743. That's what we're doing with our kids. And guess what? People keep saying we don't have the money to educate these kids. Now this is what drives me crazy. I'm getting a little crazy right now. So I'm just warning you because it drives me crazy. Right? Because then we get to the dollars and cents. Now, folks say, Jeff, all right, you say, yes, people have reform. Most of my kids never went to my charter school. 90% of my kids go to regular public schools, just like the schools you run, and we guarantee those kids, we're going to give you through elementary, through middle school, through high school, and college, through college, make that guarantee for all of our kids regardless. And I'm going to tell you a funny thing. You've got about 11,000 kids in Norwalk. I got about 12,000 kids in the zone, right? So let's just stay there for a second. I make this guarantee to all of my parents. Now, people say we can't afford it. Yeah, this is what I tell them. It takes additional money, man. You talk about you got to do some additional stuff in the summertime. Yes, we do. You got to do some additional stuff after school. Yes, we do. You got to work on some things. Yes, we do. That's what we have to do. That's the only way I can do it. I don't know another way to do it. If you got another way to do it, you do it your way. That's the only way. For me to guarantee my parents, I guarantee them this. Then I got to do that, right? So it costs them extra money. So people tell me, Jeff, we can't afford it. I say to them, look, you know what it costs to incarcerate an average person in the U.S.? $30,000 a year. That's average. You know what it is in New York State? You know what it is? $60,000 a year in New York State. $60,000. You couldn't even imagine what it costs to incarcerate somebody in New York City. I'm going to tell you a number. You're not going to believe me. Look the number up. $167,000 a year. Now listen to me. What are they talking to me about money? You know how many people we have in the New York City jail? 12,000 people. I got 12,000 people in my school. 12,000 people in New York City jail, $167,000. And they tell me we can't spend a few $1,000 to save this kid. What is it about this kid when he's 9 that we're not going to spend $3,000, but we're going to spend $167,000? It's been a national failure. I'm not talking about Norwalk. It's a failure here. It's a failure all over America right now. That's what we've been doing. And we have an opportunity to change that. Now, look, Manny talked about time to take the gloves off. People get mad at me. People get, my own team, somebody that Jeff, he must lead every kid in Murray here. He's just trying me. Raheem, he thinks every kid in Murray. I got it. Work ain't easy. I got it. But let me tell you something about having two things that you need to get this job done. He's going to need two things, man, he's going to need. He's going to need the resources, and he's going to need the time. Now, resources are going to talk about. You heard him mention. I'm going to talk about something different time. You're not going to turn around. You're not going to turn around. Norwalk or any other city in a week. Now, you can make great changes, you can get things going, but that's not the way this thing works. See, I've been at the same place, right? We started this work in Harlem. No one wanted to live in Harlem. That was 18 years ago, right? It took me about 12 years to get this thing going. So this is what happened. So people saw me 10 years ago. They like, yeah, the hospital don't mean that. Like, what's your goal? I'm getting my kids in college. Yeah, I had like 150 kids. Not all those kids. That ain't nothing. I said, yeah, but next year I'm going to have more. Now, you fast forward. I have over 1,000 kids in college today. Now, you know what? Not a short mind. I'm going to tell you what happens to a community, right? Mr. Mayor, I'm going to tell you what happens to a community when people begin to see this different vision. When you have 150 kids in school from Harlem, somebody asks the kid in Harlem, you going to college? Yeah, I don't know, kid. You know anybody goes to college? I think there's this girl that lives on 140 kids in college, right? I mean, what are they doing? You go to college. You don't have to have 1,000 kids in college. All those kids come home and those kids did something over all my programs. All my kids go. It looks like every kid in Harlem is in college. Now you ask a kid, can you go to college? They're like, she's in college. I know if she's in college, I could go to college. That's like a brilliant person right here. It changes the way kids see their future. See, before Harlem was a place that guaranteed you didn't go to college. Now, Harlem is like a place that guarantees you do go to college. So all those things you say, you better do your homework. You know why? Because you go to college. That means something now. It didn't mean anything 10 years ago. You can't act like that. You get down on your record, you go to college. That didn't mean anything to a kid 15 years ago. They knew they weren't going there. This sense of high expectation is real. Now look, people are upset with me about this whole college thing. People are upset with me that we have one goal in my program. One, to get our kids into and through college. Everything else is a preliminary indicator that we're heading in the right direction. But people say, that's wrong with vocational school. Nothing. What's wrong with military service? Nothing's wrong with military service. Nothing. The armed services, fire, police, nothing. But that's for somebody else's kids. That's not for my kids. They say, well, wait a minute, sounds a little religious. So let me tell you, this is going to be controversial. Let me tell you what I learned whenever I'm faced with something I didn't know what the right answer was. Michael, you could hear that kind of thing, but I'm not sure. So let me tell you what I learned. When you're in doubt, do what makes you do. I know it's controversial, but let me tell you how I got here, right? I had to raise a lot of money. So I mean, that's what a lot of rich people. I tried to raise money from poor people. I'm just saying, it didn't work for me, right? So now I know a lot of rich people. And look, guess what I noticed? Every single one, I'm talking 100%, one goal. One. Every single one. I've never met one way or another. Wait a second. All these kids? Yeah, every kid, they expect to go to college. Now, my theory is, if you work with kids, right, you should have the same expectations for those kids as you have for your own kids. And we had the same expectation for all three college. 200 in the college one day. But we had the same expectation for all of them. By the way, I'm going to tell you something a little disturbing. If you have 3 kids, one of them, not going to be the right one. Don't go asking the college, what do you do wrong? It's just the way it is, right? But this idea of high expectations is important and it's serious. It's important and it's serious because it changes the way you interact with a kid. When you don't see, let me tell you what happens when I lower the expectations. I got a group of teachers right now sitting there saying, they expect me to get this crew to come. As soon as I tell them there's plan B, oh, y'all guys are on the plan B, right? But guess what happens when you work in one place as long as I have? 30 years. I realized there were a lot of kids I never thought would make it. I just didn't. I know that every kid here. Yeah, I know that every kid but this one. I know. You know how about 50% of the time I'm home? About 50. So I'm going to concentrate on 50% of the time, right? 50% of the time, I thought that 7th grader wasn't going to make it, and they made it. And I'm thinking to myself, who gave me the right to decide that for that kid? Why should I be? So, we got one standard. We're pushing all of our kids to get there. The work is not easy. So let me leave you with two things. The first is that we have to realize that we're involved in science and art. We don't have all the answers as educators. We are still inventing the answers for some of those kids that everything else has failed with, right? And we just say, well, look, we try, I don't know what to do. But that is, you know what the fallback is? When you don't know what to do nothing, right? Fail them, right? You just like, no. When we don't know what to do, we gotta start thinking. We gotta start using them with all those. And the amount of education in this room is staggering, right? When I think of all of the degrees, it is staggering, right? We have to use all of that intellectual power to solve these problems. We have to be able to think outside the box. Here's the biggest challenge with educators, right? My son, my oldest boy, is a patent attorney. And I tell him, education is the only business that you don't need patent attorneys. You can't give away a good idea, right? Right? People aren't going to feel it. They're not going to say, oh, you're successful, let me go see what you're doing. But I will tell you this. When every place there is a failure, there is the same kids, same environment, someone is being successful. How come we don't know we capture it? Because we're convinced we're going to do what we did, and we're not going to think outside the box. Let me tell you about outside the box and how my whole life was changed by one teacher thinking outside the box. I was a psych major when I was at home. I was a freshman, didn't come from a good high school. They said, what's your name here? I said, psychology. They said, well, how's your math? I said, no, I'm not in math. I'm a social science kind of guy. They said, well, yeah, but psych majors have to pass statistics. And there were a lot of people in a different major because of statistics. So I did freshman year, I was ready for statistics. Sophomore year, you had to declare a major. I had to take statistics. First semester of sophomore year, I take statistics. I tested. Studied all week. When I prepared for the test, I get the results back. I got a 37. I was devastated. I mean, this is a real 37. This thing wasn't marked on the curve. It was a real report. And I sat there, and can you imagine? Can you imagine how humiliated I was? How defeated I was? How crushed I was? And I was going to just drop psychology, and something said, go see the professor. And I went to see the professor, and I was literally in tears, and I said, look, I want to be an educator. Psychology is very important. I don't know how to study. He said, Jeff, calm down. I said, I know what happened to you. I said, you know what happened to you? He said, it was the sling. I said, what do you mean it was the sling? He said, we're going to make you good psychology. All our textbooks are written by real people. They have their own biases. The biases come up in their writing. I call that the sling. This textbook we use has a particularly strong bias. It's working for everybody else in the class. It's not working for you. I want you to use a textbook written by an author with an opposite bias to see if it works. I said, and he said, no, let's try to look better. And I chapter, I want you to read it in the old book, do the problem, see what happens. I read the chapter, do the problem, right at the beginning. So I want you to read the same chapter in the new book, do the problem, see what happens. I read the chapter, did the problem, I got it. Look, I understood it, what about violence and love. 3 chapters left, just to be sure, read them in the old book, do the problem, see if you get it. Read the chapter, you get the problems, I didn't get it. So I want you to read those same exact chapters in the new book, do the problem, see if you get it. I read the chapter, I got it. Took me exam, got an A on the exam, and passed the class. So the next semester, I was sitting in a perception class when it suddenly hit me. Did you know what? That didn't have anything to do with a slant. This guy got me to read 2 books. And I was furious, right? He took his very and it wasn't until I was a teacher myself that I understood really. Here he had a kid from me who had found hard and failed in music. What do you do with a kid like that? You know what every other teacher would have said? You got to work hard. But this guy knew my ego was so bad. I was giving up. And he had to finally hold my ego intact and get me to work twice as hard. I've never forgotten what a great teacher he was. He refused to allow me to even believe for a second that I didn't have intellectual firepower to be successful. He dismissed that out of me. He said, "Sister, this is a textbook problem. It is not your problem," and I believed him. Right? That was the thing. Every day in our schools and in our classrooms come examples of folks that nothing has worked. People have given up. They have thrown in the towels, and guess what? The kids believe him. The kids believe I'm no good man. I can't do science. I can't write well. And we will allow these kids to believe this, so it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's not what great teachers do. So this idea of thinking outside the box is one thing. I'm going to do this last thing before I close, which is that we've got to make sure we use all tools to save the kids. Because you never know what will save the kids. And one of the things I'm always worried about, man, when I come into schools that have budget problems, that they begin to cut out stuff. They say, no, we can't afford the sports, the farmer has to go, no, that don't help us without, let's get rid of that stuff. But I tell folks, that's the great stuff that keeps kids engaged, that keeps them excited. Look, in the Bronx, there were like, 6 kids who lived for hours, right? We see those kids up, right? And they just not popular kids, right? So this idea that school is this place that you come to suffer, right? That's not what we want our school. We want school to be a place where kids are so excited, and then you use those other opportunities to get kids to work harder in the areas that they're struggling. That has worked for kids throughout all of our time as educators in this country, and we can't afford to cut that stuff now. Again, my life was changed because of this one teacher's refusal to let me fail. So I'm in the 1st grade. I'm a distracted kid. You know the kind of kid doesn't pay attention, goes through something. I'm not interested in this. They tried it. I finger pen, I don't finger pen. They tried to play thing, that wasn't my thing. I just wasn't into it. This teacher, I had this 1st grade teacher, she just refused to give up. She kept trying to. One day, she started reading this story. It was about this guy who didn't like these eggs. And the eggs were green. He didn't like them on a house. He didn't like them in the house. And he didn't like them here and there. And he didn't like them in the heat. He just didn't like the green eggs. And I thought, neither do I. I don't know why it was driving to me, but it was. And afterwards, the teacher finished in my hand. She was like, teacher. She said, oh, yeah. I said, could you read the hand egg? She said, and it was more profound the second time. So my hand was over, God, teacher. And she said, no, Jeff, you have to do more. And I was crushed. And she said, well, they didn't have the mother. So I get the book, I run home, I get my mother, I get my 3 brothers. I said, look, y'all gotta read this great book. So she reads the book. And I said, my brother, what do you think? And they're like, we don't get it, right? And I said, that was great. Could you read it again? And I have a little no nonsense mom, right? She looked at me and she said, I don't know what you're going through with the green egg. Not in this house, all right? So the next day, and I'm back, and I'm like, teacher, could you? And teacher said, no, Jeff, we have to do it. She just looked at me, and she could see. She said, you know what, you're going back and do it. And I didn't know how to do it. read chalk, and I know how to teach kids how to read. I know how to teach them how to sound out letters, put the letters together, make syllables, put the syllables together, make words. But that's not how I learned how to read. I learned how to read because there was this one teacher who was intent on capturing my imagination and my soul. I was from so motivated that I had to learn this, and I have never forgotten how powerful these other parts of human beings are. And if we can find in that child what will reach them, that kid will educate themselves. They'll be happy to be engaged as intellectuals. We can't dismiss the arts. We can't dismiss the sports. We can't dismiss all of those sort of silly things that somebody has this great idea, I'm really into architecture, and maybe only 8 kids sign up. Good. That's 8 we don't have to worry about. Let's make sure that we are all focused on saving every single kid. Now let me close with a poem. I write poems for advocates, and this particular poem I've written really has to deal with the fact that we've got to be prepared to stand up and fight. Look, schools fail because there's a quiet conspiracy, right? People know what's going on. People know bad stuff is happening. No one says anything, right? Like, well, no, I don't say anything. I don't cause any trouble. These kids don't have a second opportunity in their life. We're all they got. We've got to be prepared to stand up for them. Despite what happens, my kids, we just had a kid shot 2 weeks ago. My kids live with these violence. They live with the social problems at home, family problems, all of that stuff. But it doesn't mean as an educator that I'm not going to educate them, but it does mean I'm going to have to fight for what's right. So when it comes to budget time, I'm going to fight. When it comes to making sure that we hold people accountable, I'm going to fight, because these kids have no one else to fight for them except us. So let me close with this poem called Take a Stand. Maybe before we didn't know that Corey is afraid to go to school, the store, to roller skate. He cries a lot for a boy of 8. But now we know each day it's true that other girls and boys cry too. They cry for us to lend a hand, time for us to take a stand. And little Maria's window screens keeps out flies and other things, but she knows to duck her head when she prays each night for bed, because in the window come some things that shatter little children's dreams. For some, the hourglass is out of sand, time for us to take a stand. And Charlie's deepest secret wishes is someone to smother him with kisses and squeeze and hug him tight, so tight, while he pretends to put up a fight. Or at least someone to be at home who misses him. He's so alone. Who allowed this child forsaken land? Look in the mirror, take a stand. And on the Sabbath, when we pray to our God, we often say, "Oh Jesus, Muhammad, Abraham, I come to better understand how to learn to love and give and lead the life you taught to live. In faith, we must join hand in hand, suffer the children, take a stand." And tonight some child will go to bed, no food, no place to lay their head, no hand to hold, no lap to sit, to give slobbery kisses from slobbery lips. So you and I, we must succeed in this crusade, this holy deed, to say to the children of this land, have hope, we're here, we take a stand. Thank you very much.